Today on Smackey's Garage, we're going to be working on the Factory 5 GTM. I have a few small projects that I need to get through that make it safer to move and get around. These projects here I'm sharing with you are kind of the reasons why these kit cars take so long to build. I do have to build 2 custom parts to be able to make this work now. So let's go ahead, let's look at the parts that I have to build. Now for the Factory 5 GTM, got some work to do. You know, last time we were working on it, I ended up taking out the dash and cutting it so that it would fit. And after we got it to fit, there became an issue where the steering column's now contacting the dash itself. So that needs to get fixed. Also on it, you know, there's no battery hold down. And that's something that this car needs just to be safe, because if you look at exactly where that battery is in the car, it's not in a good place. If it's gonna be slipping around, it's gonna cause some issues. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna build something there as well. Now on the GTM, we can take a look. The battery's actually up here in the front, and you can see it's very tight in there. So I need to find a way to mount something there that's gonna hold that battery in place. And then the second thing I need to do is on the steering. Now down here, we built this custom dash for it, and with that dash, you can see that the entire steering column needed to be dropped a significant amount to make everything work. Now, because that is dropped, you can see in that area there is a drive that actually moves the steering back and forward, but because that was dropped so much with that aluminum bar, it doesn't work anymore. You can't bolt to it. So I need to build a custom bracket there that's gonna hold that into place. Now it might be a little hard to see, but you can see, so the bracket's right here, and this bracket is actually much too low to be able to bolt in and to have a good geometry to move this backwards and forwards. So what I'm going to need to do is build a bracket that goes from the top of this up to here and bolts in. So I guess the easiest way to do that is probably to pull everything out and just build it onto here. But I think the critical dimension that I need to get is actually that distance from here to here that keeps everything kind of in the right geometry. So I went ahead and I pulled this bracket off. So this is what I'm recreating, but adding a 1/2 inch of extra space on it. So it's going to be 1 inch wide, 5 inches long. And then I'm gonna slot it just like this, and it's gonna be a 1/2 inch tall. So, gonna go ahead and build that now. All right, so one of the things that I do not have yet is a bandsaw, so it's not as easy to cut this material, but I'm gonna cut it around 5 inches, maybe a little bit over, and I'll end up squaring it off with the mill. You know, I'm not going for perfectly squared. This isn't really a critical dimension that this be 90 degrees off of this. Now that this is the right length, I'm gonna figure out what's the right pattern I need to put onto it. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the slots in it that it needs to be able to accept the bracket. Now this part's extremely easy to make. It's just 2 quick slots on it. And then I need to just set it up so that I can get it ready to chamfer along the entire edge. You know, all these parts look so much better when you have nice chamfered edges on them. So here's the part that we made. I don't have acetone to take the die cam off of it, so we're gonna leave it as it is for now. But so each one of these screws, they're 1/4-20s, they're gonna just slide in here, and I should be able to just bolt it into place, and that should work. So now we can go ahead and get this in the car. So with this into place, we can give it some juice and we can see if it moves. It looks like the steering column is moving now, so we can get it into place where we want it with the dash that we built for it. So we're gonna have to get that, make sure nothing crashes when we get everything together. Now let's go ahead, move on to the next project and get the battery fixed and in the car. Now, anytime I go to take this battery out, I need to go make sure that I don't hit the positive terminal on anything. So it's about a 30-second project every single time. All right, now with the battery out, I have some choices. Probably should remove the pan and just take a look at it, because so that bolt all the way at the bottom of the screen where it's missing that rivet is probably where that J-hook goes, and with that J-hook's not gonna go through there. So need to take it apart, figure something else out. So I've kind of changed plans in here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that plate down there, but only to secure it. So this here is what I bought, and it's a battery plate that's specifically made for Optima batteries. I'll link this one down in the description, but it's gonna be much easier to install. So you can see the battery is going to slip into place and you're going to use these brackets 1 and 2 to hold it into place. So it's really just about getting this into place and then bolting it down now versus trying to make that other one work. Now, this is probably one of the dilemmas that a lot of people have when they're working on kit cars like this. You know, you can either buy something quickly and install it, or you can make something work. Now, I could make the bracket that it came with work, but you know, there really isn't a lot of value to do that, especially when I can buy this one and it was under $100 and it just mounts down there. And it's a lot more sturdy. So we're gonna go ahead and get this installed. All right, now I know I said this is gonna be a simple project, but unfortunately all these holes here do not line up with the bracket that I have there. So in order to do this and make it work, I need to drill some new holes. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna drill 2 holes in this location here and this location here. When you look at the Optima batteries, on the bottom there isn't a lot of locations where you can have a bolt, unless you have one that's countersunk, and this plate just doesn't have enough room for that. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna set this up, drill some holes. We don't really need to countersink them, but we just need to make sure they're drilled in the right spots. All right, so we do have a plate in there now, and you can see it's currently being secured in the front and the back. You know, I do need to get bigger bolts with this to hold it in, but I'm gonna test fit the battery, make sure that everything is good before I replace those bolts. So it should be pretty easy. I do have access to the bolts from the front and then from the back underneath the car. Okay, we're down and we are now in place. Now, one of the big things I'm noticing now that this is installed like this is with the battery in place, there's really no good way to get to the bolts because the battery is covering up the bolts. So battery needs to come out again, but at least we know everything fits. We can take some measurements, get the right bolts for it, and then put everything back together. Okay, so we're in place. You can see that I got the right bolts for it now. Both of those bolts are holding it down. If you remember previously, there were rivets underneath, and with those rivets, you know, it's tilting a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna mark up and cut out where those rivets are, and we'll mill it out of the way just so that it sits completely flat. So to do this, I think what I'm gonna do is just mark where those black bars are and then mill out underneath there. That makes the assumption that the rivets are directly somewhere in the center here because I don't want to go through and try to locate every single rivet. So I'm going to go ahead, mark up each one of these and draw diagonals. Look at that beautiful marking. So each one of the rivets is only about a 1/16 of an inch up. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cut out 2 channels here. They don't need to be perfect, but you can kind of see this one goes down here, this one across. All right, so there we go. That should work. You know, this is probably one of the better tools that I bought in a few years, and it's nice to be able to machine and make parts. Now I'm gonna go ahead, drop it in, and it should work just fine. All right, so we got the battery installed and everything is now tightened down, and no matter how much I pull on it, it's not moving around, so there's less risk of something getting shorted out and causing a fire or electrical issue. Glad that's done. Steering system's all sorted out too, so now with that in there, I can put the dash and everything back together. So thanks for tuning in to Smackey's Garage this week. I'll see you next time.